Hey, what is going on, guys? I'm Mario, and in this tutorial, we're gonna wrap up our understanding of topology series, where we're gonna focus on one additional community question. And I think that this one was really interesting and it could fit really well within the same topic. So the question was how to deal with this problems, actually this problematic areas, so that we avoid situation like this. And again, just let's break down what possibly might go wrong. So in the same as previous example, we simply do not have enough topology to support a detail like this. And then once we apply supportive edges like you see here in a bit thicker green, you have left with a problem where you are trying to connect, actually we're trying to connect those edges from here to a single point, which not just it's lying on a flat edge. So basically this area here as well will cause some pinching again, because you have two widely spread edges going into one single point that already has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges here. So again, of course, that will create pinching on its own. And as a result, let me just go back. We can see it here. And what actually is happening is that you have one open edge, and that one open edge would need to close here. So basically you have one point, second point on your own basic edge, which would be, let's say, structural. So the highlight, if you would render this, the highlight would break in this and this area. So again, just something to keep in mind. And I would like to break down what we talked about so far, because it's also important here. So that first, what we need to do is establish our shape, then make sure that we have enough topology, make sure that we have evenly spread edge flow all across the surface, so more or less even distribution of edges. Then as the third part, we're going to add supportive edges, and then as a fourth part, we're going to manipulate those edges to create an edge flow that we want. Now, I say that because in this example, we are going to break some of the rules. And as I talked about that before, it is really important to understand the basic rules, or what we need to do and how the edges go, so that we can easily break them later, again, that they work in our favor. So we're going to focus on that today. So let me just go and add a cube here, and I'm just going to select this, and actually I need invert it so that I can just use this part and push it outside. I think this will do. And then to add more geometry, we just need to go and smooth face. Now, one thing about smooth faces, if you by any chance have sharp edges, you'll have this as a result. And if you change to sharp edges and corners, you will then get this result. Now, same like an example that we talked previously, this would not be enough geometry for the detail that we want to do. So instead, what I'm going to do, we're going to smooth faces, and then I'm going to hit G to smooth it one more time. And this will then be just enough geometry for the details we want to do. And then I can extrude this, scale it a bit, and then push it down. Now, the one thing that we need to do here is we would need to snap this point to here. So what I can do is just hit D, and we're holding shift. So basically D will give you your axis modification, where you can move the axes. So I will hit D, and I will hold shift to click here on position, and hit D again. And we have also here snapped points. So also if you hold V, you will see that now V, holding it, it will turn it on, and you can just simply push it down until it snaps. Now, if it's snapped, you can check if you hit number 3 on your keyboard, you will see that you will have, actually, if you select this, it won't be one edge, but it will be 2. So let's go to vertice, and what I'm going to do is just select all of them and merge vertices, and we'll merge vertices on a small tolerance until they snap together, and just hit apply and close. And there we have our beginning shape. Now, Again, one thing that I want to mention, we are going to break some rules here because as you notice already here, we already have even distribution of edges, so we can skip that part. What we have is fairly established shape. One thing that we are missing is this side inside. So let me just reset this and extrude this on the inside. Actually, I'm going to delete this. Maybe it's going to be easier to demonstrate, and maybe we'll just push it a bit more inside. All right, so there we are. So let's say that this is now our beginning starting point. We have enough edges to work with. We have our edge established. So the third thing that it would be on our list that we need to do is add supportive edges. But in this case, this might not work as we want it to be, simply because it is a bit more of a complex shape. And when we have shapes like this in play, this is what I say, sometimes you will need to understand the very basics of edge flow topology in general very well so that you can break the rules, meaning that you will need to know where to add specific edges on your own without going directly into bevel options. So now we can bevel it, and I will leave everything on auto. And even if I don't leave it on auto and set it on uniform, this is the result that we're gonna get. So what I mentioned previously is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid corners that are looking like this paper airplane, sort of inverted, where you have this angle break. If this would be a different situation, that it would be more on the outside, that would work. But we are in general trying to avoid that. So let me do one more. One other thing, let me just clear out about this. What I just said is that, let me go back to uniform. Okay, if this would be maybe on a flat surface. So if this is lying on a super flat surface, maybe it would not be an issue. But as the moment you're working with something curved, even if it's something small, I don't know, I guess maybe you would get away with it. But I would just try and avoid that situation where possible. And since we are now talking about the topology, I really want to show you then some other solutions that are a bit more practical. All right, so let me go and try to do another version. Another version would be something like this, where it looks already familiar to what we've done before. And then we just need to do is connect this piece here, this to here, and we will be done on this area. We will just need to fix this area here. So let me just remove this one for now, and this edge is not flowing directly where we want them to go. So we would need to fix that and connect it here. And maybe what we would need is just slide it until we have a nice enough flow. All right, so here we have a triangle, and here we have quite a mess. So basically, if you would now subdivide this in the same principles that we talked before, you would get, let's say, this as a result. Now, in general, like I mentioned previously, this would be our general workflow where we just add supportive edges, but in situations like this, maybe there would be a workaround where we would need to apply different flow just so we have a bit more of a control of what we're doing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come back a couple of steps and break that rule that we said that we need to add supportive edges and then deal with edges. We're not going to do that here simply because now this shape requires a bit more manual work. If we subdivide, we will see that we have already sort of flow established. And even if I would now come here and add two supportive edges like so, you will see that we would have, let me just increase the subdivision one bit more. You'll see that the edge flow is fairly straightforward. So it's showing us where we had denser edge intensity, in which direction those edges would flow. So maybe if we would just go ahead, I'm just going to demonstrate real quick. Don't do this. I just want to demonstrate how it would look if we would just apply edges like so. So it will be more of a sharper bevel here. So what we need to do is we need to do exactly the same thing, except not add edges all across the surface like so. This is something that we are not doing. Just in order to make this sharper, because we are going to lose some of that curvature and some of that structure that it's already established. So what we need to do now manually is we're going to need to add edges in places around this detail without affecting the curvature. So no edges across the surface. So this is something that we will not do. All right, so first step, in order to do that, we need to establish which edge we need to sharpen up. So we need this edge sharper because it's fairly smoothened, and we need to have this edge sharper as well because it has way too much of a curve in this area. So let's start by what we talked before, simply by adding edges and trying to even out the spread around our object. So this would be the first thing. The second thing what we can do is bring back those edges here so we can check how that looks, and then we can maybe add 2 more here to give a bit more structure there as well. All right. And now we can maybe tighten up this area as well. So we have here a situation where we can reuse this edge. And whenever you see this situation, so we have very small surface going into very high surface. So basically this one is fairly condensed and this one is fairly spread. You can use the same technique that we used here. So basically I'm going to create this edge. From this edge, I'm going to create 3 edges. And to do that, I'm going to follow the flow of the top one to here. And this one follow the flow of the bottom one till here. So we have now from one edge, we have 1, 2, 3. So one edge is flowing to 3. The problem is we have this triangles, but if you just remove the mid edge, you will get a quad. So basically now this is what we did. One edge is now flowing into 3 edges so that the spread, it's sort of flowing evenly into this one. What you want to avoid is 3 edges going all across the surface into this tight condensed area. So you don't want to have the loop going all the way here and then the mid loop not stopping here but going all the way here till the end. This is something that you do not want. So, and this is something that we are looking for. And I'm just going to continue the flow till here and close it here and do the same thing and close it here. And then again, if I need to, I just can remove unnecessary edges so I can easily fix some areas. Maybe push it a bit down and maybe I can push this a bit more up. So what these 2 edges will do, they will just give a bit more tension to the corners and just give a bit more structure when we subdivide. So as you can already notice, we're already getting some structure in this area. Now the problem is, you can see here this highlight is going to follow. It can be a cool detail if you want to, but if you want to completely avoid it, sometimes what you can do, for now I'm going to leave it, but sometimes you can average vertices to release some of that tension and then it's going to be much less. One other thing what we are going to need here and what we are currently missing is one edge loop here. So let me just actually remove this and bring relative offset. We are missing one edge loop here. So let me just again show you what I mean by that is that now that tension is way less. And depending on this edge, you will see that the tension will change. So this edge we will need to add later. But like I mentioned, what we are trying to do is we do not want to have edge just for the purpose of what we need here and just add it all across the surface. This is something that we're trying to avoid in this case. All right, so we have now another problem situation where we have this area here fairly tightened, and this area, as you can see, that the smoothness is not the same. And the reason is that this edge is not the same size as this one. And in order to have the same size corner, then we would need to have one more edge in this area so that we avoid this little thing. And to do that, again, I'm just gonna delete this for now. What we can do is borrow this one. And in our first video and our second video, we talked about borrowing edges. Now, borrowing edges is not okay if that edge is a structural edge. And in this case, the structural edge will be this, or structural edge would be this one here. This is not a structural edge because it doesn't hold any importance to the shape. If this shape would be like this, this would now be a structural edge. And if we would borrow it, we would remove the structure. But for now, this one is not a structural edge, so we can borrow it. And we can push it over here. Now, once we do that, we will create another problem where, as you can see, this edge, this polygon and this polygon again are fairly different size. So what I like to do to even it out, and whenever you have a situation, let's say of polygon like this, you can always create it into a triangle. So I'm gonna do that. Connect here to here, like so. Okay, and maybe I should have bring back symmetry. So let's do that again. So forget about the triangle for now, because we are going to fix that soon. So from here to here, all right. And then to fix the triangle, whenever you have a triangle, you can always just add an edge loop here. And then if you slide it, you'll see more clear than what we have. And basically, yeah, now we just sorted out this corner right here. So what we have now is a bit more, again, even distributed edges. And we're slowly getting there. So we're slowly working and just reorganizing edges without actually using supports, but we are creating supportive edges on your own. As you can see, this edge here is actually a supportive edge. This edge here is a supportive edge to this one. And this edge loop here is a supportive edge to this. So basically, we're just manually adding supportive edges to the places where we need them to be, and just finding nice and organized way to do it. And again, this edge loop is a supportive edge to this. So what we talked about before is that every let me just show you a quick example again. So what we talked before, that in order to have a nice subdivision, let me just actually select all. In order to have a nice subdivision, we need to have at least one, and ideally 3 edges in total. So basically, this is our main edge and then 2 supportive edges. In some situations, so let me just delete this. In some situations, you can always also go away with one supportive edge. So this is our main and this is our support, and you will see that it will still maintain the structure. And if you would like to have, let's say, one more supportive edge here, and again, we would not add it like this, but we will find a much more elegant way to deal with that. While we're here, I just want to give you maybe one example what we can do, but I'm gonna skip that for now. So what we can do is we can add, let's say, a bevel like so, or with a chamfer on. It really doesn't matter, but for now I'm just going to show you without a chamfer how you can do it. I'm going to connect, let's say, this to here, add an edge loop in the middle, and then use this and connect it here. So this is how you would get to that third edge. But the problem here for now and for us would be that the highlight, you will now see in which direction is the highlight is going. So if I bring back these two supports, you would see that the highlight would now stretch out. And I'm not sure if we want this now, so I'll just bring it back and leave it until we come back to this area later. So we're just slowly building what we need. And yeah. And okay, what we can do now here at the bottom is the same thing what we did on the top. Just push this a bit closer so that we have more tighter area, and then just close it same way we did on top and add an edge loop here and slide it like so. Alright, so for now I think it's going good. The only thing now that we are missing is, like I mentioned, we need an edge here to control what is happening to this detail here. And to add this, we need the supportive edge on the outer side. Now, you can do that sooner. You could have done that sooner, but like I said, in many situations, we are going to need to break some of the rules in order to make our workflow easier. So if we did not went through that process, that we know that we need supportive edges in specific situations, now also maybe we wouldn't have known that the supportive edge here would help us contain all this detail within one area. So what I mean by supportive edge, so for example, if you're working in Cinema 4D, you can just now select the outline and duplicate it on the outer side. In Maya, you cannot do that as far as I'm aware, but you would need to use bevel in order to do that. So in bevel, in many situations also will not give you maybe the results that you want, because in this case we have a lot of edges here. But even so, in some situations you will need to do this manually. And in order how to do it manually and how to know which edge flow goes here, you can just select a couple of edges in this case, and then do the bevel on your own just to check what kind of workflow, what kind of edge flow do you need. And basically this is the flow that we need. And so now what we need to do is just do it manually. So I will do it here, connect here, and then select these 2 points and merge them in center. And this is now the same thing. If we check uniform, this is now the same flow. And we just need to repeat it all around the surface. So we'll just come here. And this is also what I mentioned. If we did not practice on smaller examples, more simple examples, then we would not know what to do when a bit more of a complex example comes into place. So here we can do the same thing. So you can just select these two and then go to select these two, merge vertices to center. As an alternative, also when you have a triangle like this, what you can do is connect it here to here, and then you would get something like this. But again, it will just depend on a purpose and if you really want something like that. But for now, I just want to keep it same. So let's just merge vertices center, and let's just offset it a bit, and yeah, there we are. So now we have supportive edge loop around our object, our detail, I'm sorry. And then if we bring back this here, then it's a bit more contained. So yeah, now more or less this shape is closing in, and what we can do is just maybe if you want to average the vertices, then you will have a bit more of a natural flow here. And if we check how this would look with the blend, how the highlight would look, and we can then see if it's working for us or not. You can also have this a bit closer if you wish. So I can now select all of it and then hit T. In my case, its scale is T. So I'm going to just hit scale, and while holding control and middle mouse, I can scale around the normals, and I can just push it a bit closer if I really want to have a tighter area. So then this would be the result if you want to have it like that. One other thing maybe that we can do, and like I said, it really doesn't matter, because if the result so far is fairly okay, what we can do is create another edge loop here. But again, like I said, maybe in this situation, one supportive loop around this is enough. But if you feel like it, you can create one more going here around now. Okay, well, let me just bring back symmetry. So to here, to here, to here, and then we would close this in this area and then remove this edge, and then yeah, this would be then the final result. But if you don't feel like it, if it's still looking okay, one edge loop as a support also works just fine. So yeah, I believe that this with this we can close this video. And final thing, yeah, I would like to mention, it will just take practice. Like, in order to come to this point, we really needed to go through a bit more simple examples. And while I do understand that can be super boring to do, sometimes really tedious to practice the small examples or whatnot. And I know it's much more interesting to work on cars, robots, or anything similar to that. But yeah, we all need to go through this basic stages, and in order to understand this in order to understand how to create larger projects, we just need to understand how to create simpler ones first. Okay, before we actually close the video, there are a couple of things that I realized that I forgot to mention, and maybe there were good examples of what we're talking about, but I realized only later once I rewatched the video, so that's maybe why this looks a bit different. So here, if you remember, when we had situation that we have something like this, so I showed you just a second ago here up, here that would be actually a good maybe solution to take this connection, simply because you would keep the integrity of this flow if you want to keep this flow and not going it here to the side. So this is one option and one variation of this corner where could it be useful. Second thing that I forgot to mention is that once we use highlights, so let me see here, if we're now assign blend material, so where we see highlight a bit better, we can see that this edge is not actually fully sharp. And the reason is, when we see this loop, we don't have a proper edge. Here is one, but it's not going all the way. But the main reason why this is happening is that this one is going away this side. So basically it's stretching this highlight into this direction. So in order to control the highlight, what we could have done is maybe pushed one more of the edge here inside. and this would control that highlight a bit better all the way till the end. So this here wouldn't matter so much because it is already pinched, and this is giving us enough highlight in that area. Alternatively, so let's just quickly check the alternative. I'll now put this all back and just scale it, so just how it was. So for example, this how it was. Once we introduced a supportive edge, now the new opportunity maybe came, and the opportunity is maybe that we add a new flow directly in this direction, like so. And again, just for the sake of making it easier, we can now slide these points here, and just I want to even it out. And then this becomes extra, and then we can just close this to here, and then this becomes extra. And then basically we would just need to close this to here because we have this triangle. This would be our triangle. But yeah, and also maybe we can just release some of the tension if we need to, a bit far down here in the middle. And now we should have a nice enough highlight in this area, and then I'm just gonna bring back these two edges, and yeah, there we are. So yeah, like I mentioned, I was originally rewatching the tutorial one more time because I like to just check if everything is okay, and then I realized that there are some other possibilities to maybe fix, and then this highlight came to my mind, and then I just wanted to mention that as an addition to already established shapes. So as you can notice, there are really multiple ways that we can establish the same thing, and again, we can, if we want to, really just average this vertices a bit more. And yeah, there we are. So in any case, I hope that this was useful enough that you managed to get something out of it. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section down below. We also again have a Discord channel where you can share similar examples, and I'll be glad to help out if I can. So with this, I'm going to close this video. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for all of your great support, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice day. Cheers.